Let's put it
Perfect.
in our, let's put it
We
in
do have a Google
the
Docs
admin
folder,
channel.
Trying to find it is mostly my issue, but
It's under, if you go to assembly line, it's one of the tabs.
oh, okay.
You could put it specifically, since this would be the admin meeting, you could put it specifically in the file tab for the admin channel.
But storing it there is a good idea too, just so that people can find
Yeah.
it with Google's
Although
terrible
you want to store it
information.
in the bigger one so everybody can see it. That works too. All right, well, we're live and somewhat organized, festive. We're festive. Quentin, or should I say Harvey?
No, I'm just a generic rabbit.
Hard to say. You don't really know what Harvey looks like because he's invisible.
He is.
So I have not seen that movie in decades.
So I don't think I have anything really for management I can think of, although I guess we should raise our agenda item of keeping an agenda and putting notes with the agenda. A running agenda is the other way of described it, that like living agenda.
Right.
Running agenda.
Well, let's just decide. We have quorum. I'm going to assume this is quorum because we're just missing Caroline, and although Lily hasn't come to a long time, which is unfortunate. Is that a scheduling? But she doesn't have capacity, right? It's a capacity issue, or is it a scheduling issue?
Yeah, we could check in with Lily. We'll talk about that offline, I guess.
All right. Well, anyhow, we have a majority, I think, of the regular attendees, which will count that as quorum. Are we good with doing? We should do an agenda. Sounds like Bryce is already doing it.
I'm doing it. I'm typing it out. I'm typing out what we say.
All right.
Do you want to do a screen share too, Bryce?
Where does it live?
Yes, give me a sec for that. I've put it in the there's an agenda and notes under the doc assembly line project in the drive that I just decided to put it there. We can move it probably later if we want to go somewhere else. But yes, I can also screen share when I am ready. That would make sense.
You can see where it is.
And do we want to sum up the points for recording versus not recording? Like regardless of living agenda type of thing?
Oh, okay. So yeah, whether we should keep the recording is the other question, right?
Michelle,
I think
you just
what?
want to document the decision, so it was in the. Or you asked
Agenda.
new decision, or just document the old decision. I feel like
I mean,
We-
I think we didn't make a decision, but
No, I think you're right. I don't think we really all came up with a
All right.
decision there.
yeah, we should probably move this from being in instead of being in Drive. We should probably make it in. We should move it over to Teams, because that's where we're.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, I had said Drive, and the only reason was it's a lot easier for everyone to edit, but that's not like a block.
I don't know how well our team stuff works for like outside collaborators. I don't know if Michelle specifically I don't know if we've even shared really any like Word docs that you've been able to edit. I would just want to make sure that you have access to it and can easily like edit
access
stuff
to the
for outside
access
collaborators.
to the team.
Anyone in the team can? Okay.
Do it in Teams. So,
I can try editing, but yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure we don't get.
I think the big limit is on starting a document. And I think anybody who we'd want to allow to edit or see it would need to be a member of the team. I think that is a setting that Suffolk has set for all teams. It's not like a
So
required
not
setting. That's how they
guests
set it up.
necessarily.
Guests would be members
Okay.
of the team still for that purpose.
Who had access to the team, the place where it was stored. Access. I just like the idea of as many things in one place as possible.
No, it is nice to keep it there. But it's great.
Okay, cool.
You can move it over later.
One thought would be we probably don't need quite as detailed notes, but that's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I know.
Just, yeah, that's okay.
I usually write a bit too many and then I go back and do slight edits just to make it more readable.
And I think what we could do, what do people like is that we'll put it in Teams on the normal assembly line channel so everyone would have access to it. And then we can link to it, and then we could basically, before meetings, do we like the idea of people throwing the things they want to put on the agenda before? And that way it's incumbent upon whoever wants to talk about something to put it on there. And if there's more discussion, we can add some notes, but in the very least, then we know. And
Well, I've noticed here and elsewhere that you can say that, but very few people actually end up doing that.
that might be true, but we'll have
But
to talk it
it's a
over.
venue, yeah.
It's enough. Yeah, I have found at least when we don't, we do. I think we try to do something similar for the back end meeting, and I think at worst case, it's just like the first 2 or 3 minutes we sort of do the same thing we do in stand ups of like, okay, what are we like? Anything y'all want to talk about? And we go through really quick, and we're like, okay, let's get it all on the list and start going through one by one. And so that works as a fallback for no one had time to put stuff on the list.
Yeah, I think so. But let's start with an expectation of, if you have something you want to talk about, let's throw it there. That way, it's not someone always having to retype what it says. Does that sound appropriate to folks? It can be our aspirational goal.
Yeah, sure.
All right, and Michelle, you had wanted to just memorialize the reasons we did this.
Well, I was actually suggesting the reasons, pros and cons of recording versus not recording, which I think is actually
question.
separate. Yeah.
All right, let's do this. That's gonna be something we talk about. Let's quickly go through, see what other things people want to put on the agenda.
Great.
Quentin, anything else?
No, not that I can think of.
All right, Michelle, anything else?
No, thank you.
Bryce, anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, then let's talk about recording versus not recording.
All right, so I think the main cons for recording was just it's kind of a lot of data for possibly not a lot of reasons, right?
Yeah, I think the worry is that we were just doing it because it's the way we had done it. It served, the primary purpose it served historically was that it allowed people asynchronously to sync up with conversations. But we had also recognized that there were now times where we had conversations that we thought weren't appropriate for recording. And so the question was, what's the appropriate default?
Hmm. And I think the pros. Oh, yeah. The pros are letting people catch up and capturing details that might otherwise be lost to time and memory.
And then another con might be something effectively chilling of certain types of sharing.
Is this a con of recording or a con of not recording? Okay.
And along with that might be mistaken disclosures of information, right? So by screen shares or banter or something.
Yeah.
So that posterity.
Posterity is the word. I was like, I know there was a word that was used that was good.
And forgetting or adding details that might otherwise be lost.
keeping details that way I realize a bit also. But yeah, right.
Details slash nuances slash whatever.
I guess like one more benefit would be there's no need to have notes. No one needs to take notes.
Well,
that I think,
Limited need for notes.
that's the I think
I
that's
don't
a
necessarily say it overrides anything. But
well, no, I think that was one of the few things we had decided last time was that like it feels like you don't need to take notes, but you still kind of practically need to take notes because like for the purpose of note taking, videos are not great because you will not have enough time to go through and like a double your day and like watch the recording even on fast speeds.
Right.
And so I think I'm not quite sure that's a pro per se. Unless we try to put in a bit more effort on like time stamping things and figuring out how to get that process working. But my understanding was that it was just not quite wouldn't quite be a replacement.
I guess there's an interesting question here. To what extent do we need the nuance of these conversations? So
I feel like we probably don't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know
but
that during coding deep dive,
that is a different meaning.
I refer, yeah. I'm just saying that's like my experience of most of the time when I go back to meetings, it's coding deep dive and like the details sometimes.
I mean, that seems very, I think that's probably, that's a different meeting, right? I can imagine there's screen sharing going on with detailed nuance and, showing of how things function. But for these discussions,
I feel like what we really want to have are the action items and the decisions, and maybe a little bit about why we made a decision, like at least like a bullet's good. So if we're like, why did we make that decision? We can decide if we still agree with it.
and then I guess the question is, if that's the level of detail we need, then is video overkill?
So it sounds to me like we could try taking notes for a while, see if they're sufficient, and then make a decision.
I think that makes a certain amount of sense, right? Like, I think the thing is I'm a digital hoarder myself, so I entirely understand the impetus to want to like have everything. Like it's there, we know it's there. Even if we never go back and get it, we know it's there. And even if it's really hard to go back and get it, we know it's there, and it's like a security blanket.
And
But,
future AI will be able to find it for us. So
that might not be a good thing.
Yeah, no.
So I just keep thinking about this conversation we're in right now, and I'm like, in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, 5 months, is anyone can go back and listen to our back and forth about, like what's the level of compression we need for these meetings? And I feel like Quentin's right, like bullet points with action items and maybe a quick statement about decisions. And then Michelle's suggestion is, let's try it. Does that?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, the only thing that I wanted to just check in is, Michelle, I know like for you, it's especially helpful for memory. Is there a need for us to have like a private recording? I mean, I don't necessarily know if that solves all of our concerns, but it's just I wanted to make sure that we weren't neglecting
I mean,
for retention memory.
a private concern would certainly help, like if I had memory issues and as long as I could see the video, and it's fine for me.
But is the idea of having these notes, would that be enough, or would you
enough?
really, is it not really a reasonable way to accommodate that need?
I think like if action items came up for me, we could just try to take really detailed notes, maybe. I don't know. I will say I've gone back to find out whys for questions on deep dive as well. How kind of justifications in the past. I've looked at meeting
Yeah.
notes and then been able to find that date and approximately that time in the videos. So,
I do think that deep dive is perfect. Like, I don't think,
Yeah, I don't
at
think
least personally, I agree. I don't think I want to get rid of recording for deep dives. I too sometimes have gone back and like if it's like one specific thing that I've tried to do, like the feedback, I like went back, or the GitHub feedback thing that I was working on. I like went back and looked at the videos there, and so like that was a thing that I think I feel like we're all in agreement that we don't want to get rid of the deep dive thing, but I'm mostly trying to think of similar things that would come out of a admin meeting as action items, because they probably shouldn't be technical. If they are technical, I think it's probably, if we start going into a bit more technical things of like, oh, how do we think of this UI feature or something, which happens sometimes in admin, maybe we just like, okay, like anyone okay with recording this one particular conversation for that? We can always go back and look at it then. But I'm trying to think of more general things that come out of the admin meeting that like at least I personally would be like, yeah, I might go back and look at and like try to get like the nuances of why we made this decision, because usually the action items I feel that come out of this are high level. Let's think about this thing a bit more. Like, let's put this, like, let's throw this, let's talk about, like, we all agree we want to do this, let's throw this in the back end conversation on how to do it or something like that.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, I mean, I suspect if if the need arises, it will be rare, and then it'll be too late to say, wish we'd recorded that. But, you know, I think we, like you said, we also have to be practical in some ways about this. So,
Yeah. I'm also thinking how this conversation moves over into discussion of stand-up. I think stand-up's a lot more like this meeting than it is like deep dive.
It
and-
is.
and it
I feel
just
like
gets
it's
people-
actually a bit of both. I was just thinking, and I was like, in terms of, because the other I think open question that we have is whether or not we want to do something like this for via like partners meeting, because I know some of the partners have expressed that it would be helpful. But I feel like most of our stand-ups end up operating like both. Like the first half of just going through everyone is a bit
I'm
more
thinking more about Friday
admin
stand-ups.
meeting. Well, no, but I think Friday stand-ups work sometimes the same way. Of the first part where everyone's going through can get admin meeting depending on like what we're talking about, and then if we ever have to loop back on something, the loop back is likely like a deeper dive or a technical issue or something that we could go record, if that makes sense, because that's how I sort of am thinking about these things how they end up working out a lot of times. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Hmm.
Just so, in case folks were curious, we lost power here, which is why I called through on the phone, and you heard me looking at the circuit breakers.
cool.
Not local, it's out in the street. So
It's gonna be a little while. Yeah.
I have no idea. Well, we've decided we want to have the living notes.
Do we want to have both for a while and just see how it goes? I think,
Yeah.
I honestly
that's-
think catching the situations in which it's going to happen is going to be rare, and we just may find it a few months from now or something. So
let's go ahead and keep the notes, keep the recording, and then we will revisit at the close of the semester. How about that?
Okay.
Sure.
That's good. That gives us about a month.
And then we'll see, if anything's come up, and if it has, then that'll inform things, and if it hasn't, that'll inform things.
I do wonder, did we decide we wanted to make a decision about stand-ups, or do we want to defer that? Because I do wonder if there's like, the reason why we haven't been doing recordings in the morning with our partners meeting is just to promote like a freer discussion, right? But we haven't had notes for that meeting either.
No.
But what we have been really good, I think, is turning questions into documentation like right after the meeting, actually. So
Yes.
I feel like it's a good balance.
Yeah, I mean, that was our conversation. Whether or not it was memorialized last week was that those meetings did seem to have very good documentation coverage. And so for that reason, because most of the time, yeah, we didn't think it was as necessary.
But does that, so that was kind of like why we don't need it for Monday stand-ups.
Yeah.
But what about Friday stand-ups? Like, did we think we should, this is probably the place to decide if we want to stop recording those.
I think it is.
So
I can't remember the last time we had like a really deep dive into something on a Friday stand-up.
it's-
Sometimes the deepest dive we get on Friday stand-up is sometimes when we hadn't had a Monday, or we start to talk about something that should be a Monday thing before it's Monday.
Mhm. And it also tends to be, what was I going to say? That we discuss less sensitive things there too, like the admin meeting, we're trying to make decisions, which sometimes means talking about things that aren't public yet, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah.
The admin meetings especially shouldn't be recorded, but
The only thing I wonder about is, like if it's always a balance, if the recording is always a balance between sort of like, a certain type of almost psychological safety and the ability to share. We like that on our Monday cohort meetings because there people are learning to do stuff. And so we want people to feel like they don't have to feel bad about asking questions.
Mhm.
I wonder if there's a similar dynamic to that with Friday meetings. And if there's a, because we occasionally do have new people cycle through there. It's a very small meeting these days, though.
it is. Yeah. I mean, I guess we could start to get new people there, but I don't know when we will. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting my students to join it. I suppose in the summer, that will be when it changes again.
Yeah, in the summer it'll change again. Yeah. I don't know. I just started realizing it. The thing that prompted me a couple weeks back is that we're just amassing this large video library, and the question was why. I just want to make sure we have an answer. if we think it's where we're going.
Yeah.
All right. Well, does anyone have strong opinions about Fridays? Do they think it's more like one thing than another thing?
I guess I would lean towards no longer recording it, but I'm certainly okay with kind of having the same timeline if we do it for the semester, and then also revisiting it in the spring, like at the before the summer starts.
Yeah, I saw a thumbs up there from Bryce. So we'll keep the status quo as far as recording goes, but we're going to actively keep an eye out for whether or not recording is something that actually benefits us over the next month and change. And if we find that it isn't giving us much benefit, or the benefit is, then we can balance things, right? We'll know the benefit to put in the cost benefit. The main cost being remembering to turn private to public or public to private. I know it's a tiny little cost, but it's there. Okay. All right. So we've got determination on that. We're gonna do through the end of the semester, try to do the agenda, the living agenda, and see whether or not videos for this meeting and for Friday's stand-up are things that give us a benefit or incur any costs. And we'll revisit at the end of the semester.
That sounds good. Yeah, one thought about this agenda is like it might be nice to have at the end section for decisions and action items.
Yeah, I like that.
Unless we feel like, because it's a little bit more detailed note-taking format right now, it might be hard to figure out what are the things that should have a decision if we just read through. But
one format I've seen is that in a large running document like this, I mean, obviously you have things running chronologically, but then at the very bottom you have like outstanding items. So there might be, outstanding action items that someone's working on. That way you just don't lose the thread on them. So you don't have to say, the action item was like, I'm going to do X, and we put that in the meeting notes for today. But then next week we do something else and we don't mention that. But I'm still working on X. it might be useful just to have like a running to-do list at the very bottom of things that are live. But I can add that in. That'll be my action item. I will add in such a space once my power returns.
That's right. I was gonna suggest we maybe doing it at the top, because that's another thing we end up doing in the deep dive meeting of the action items. Sometimes just become agenda items for like the next time.
yeah.
Of like, how do you have this go? So
That is also a perfectly fine way to do that, as long as the information doesn't get lost.
We also check off items that we have discussed and finished with versus items that need to be.
Also, we should
There
just
it is.
copy whatever format's working there well. I do believe someone earlier said that deep dive was perfect.
It's definitely a different kind of thing, but it's certainly, I think it does, it's been working well. I agree.
If we can learn
Yes,
stuff from there, let's go with it. All right. Well, do we have any more? Trying to figure out what I'm going to do without power. Do we have any more?
This morning when I came in, my keyboard didn't work. But that was easy fix, so I just had to walk down the hall to get a new keyboard.
I guess I'll have to fire up the laptop, but I'm not sure how useful it'll be with it. I'm going to be making a visit to my folks' place to see if they have power. I think that's what's going to happen. All right. Well, I should probably save up my data since I might have to do some more Zoom meetings today while on my phone.
Oh, hopefully you don't have to go to class on your phone, huh? I guess you could go to the library or something.
Yeah, I hope not. I'm hoping my folks maybe have power, because I do have a rather detailed meeting with a student here in a couple minutes that I wanted to be able to share screens on. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to jump for that as all these things are hitting me because the power hasn't
Okay.
come back yet.
All right. I think we're good. I think we covered, this was a
All right.
big.
Well, then I guess we can stop recording on this.